I think Formula One is the only sport in which teams get penalised for finding ways to improve their performance, and rules are brought up purposely to stifle those performance gains. Well, yeah, you're absolutely right there. I mean, you can trace that back to a number. Well, it's gone back. It goes back a long way. Every regulation change, going back, almost to the beginning of time, is based on it's too expensive, it's too powerful, it's too fast, it's too this, it's too that. Let's change it, and so that's characterized the history of Formula One over the years, and that's why it isn't just an ever exploding world of this is faster, this is better, this is more innovative. I think there was probably a pivotal moment in 1993 around August time, German Grand Prix, Hockenheim, when Bernie Ecclestone went around the Formula One paddock with a sort of one-page 15-point dossier and got all the team owners to sign it, and that basically banned technology in Formula One. And that was because although Bernie had done a very good job with Gordon Murray in circumnavigating all the rules in the early 80s in Formula One, 81, very good example, with the ride height thing, Bernie felt that the show he was running didn't need all this ABS brakes, traction control, all the other stuff that was inevitably going to come, and lift the costs for all the teams, because he had a pretty good business model at that point, which was based on how much the race organisers could afford, what the TV revenue was going to be, and what potential circuit advertising was going to be. And he could feel that it was getting out of whack. And so therefore, the thing to do was just to ban technology. Interestingly, there was one thing he didn't ban. I think he just forgot or didn't know about it, which was active diffs. But that's the subject of another video coming up soon. Put that to one side. But everything else just got banned. And if you look back at it now, a lot of the accidents that happened in '94, not only Ayrton's, of course, but a lot of others, Rubens, a very good example, at Imola, you could trace back to the banning of that technology and the cars basically having no suspension and just running super flat and super harsh. And that is, that was a seminal moment, I think, for Formula One, that '93 Bernie thing. And it's never really recovered from that. It's whenever anybody's come up with anything innovative, oh, it's going to cost money, we better ban it. And you can talk to Paddy Lowe today, and it's probably cheaper to run a proper active ride system today on a Formula One car and have a really good ride, and the drivers are feeling the wheels on the road, you've got suspension, you could control the aerodynamics more efficiently if you wanted to keep the cars at a certain lap time. But they won't do it because it's already been banned, so it'll never happen again, that sort of attitude. And yeah, so you're right, Carmel 7, you're absolutely right. That is the only sport in the world where that happens, although you see it a little bit in golf, I guess, don't you? They ban the big belly putters because they were making putting too easy, basically. But that's not really a good example, is it? But because Formula One is about power, money, technology, human endeavor, passion, the whole thing, inevitably it's going to get all mixed up, isn't it? And that's where we're at. Doesn't really answer the question, but it gives you a little bit of sporting history perspective, I suppose. This is from Richard 1. I worked on the security side of Formula One at the Paddock Club some years ago. Wow, that's a job for you. There's a common phrase amongst us workers, which was Formula One is 10% go, 90% show. Unfortunately, everyone who saw that last year knew that to be true. Well, yeah, it's what I was saying. It is. I was saying it's both, but yeah, of course it's a show. And when you look at the way rules are manipulated and changed for whatever reason, you got to say it was a show. I mean, think back. We just talked about Bernie. Think back to that '78 Swedish Grand Prix when he ran what was patently a car with a moving aerodynamic device, which was the fan at the back of the Brabham, which made it a sucker car. And his solution to that was to admit that, yeah, it probably was illegal, but give me the race win anyway. I mean, that would never happen in any other sport. Why did he get the race win if the car was illegal? It wasn't illegal. They agreed to not race it anymore. That was the final adjudication. And so, that's kind of set the tone for everything. Highview says, Am I crazy to say that I miss the days of blown engines, failing brakes, and refueling fiascos? I don't think Steve Matchett is. I was talking to Steve the other day, certainly by email. He was one of the mechanics on that Benetton that caught fire at Hockenheim. I think it was Jos Verstappen's, wasn't it? The famous headline in the Mirror, ignited colours of Benetton. Yeah, do we want any more of those refueling fiascos? Do we want unpredictability? You know, if you look at some of the race results in the history of the sport, many of them have been as a result of some other car having a ridiculous mechanical failure, maybe a broken rotor button on a distributor, or a high pressure or a high tension lead falls off, or something stupid like that. You know, and they've defined world championships, those sorts of silly things. And they kind of still happen today, but personally, I'm of the view that the more, we've got all these variables, but the more you can eliminate the variables caused by tyres and engine, really, the better the racing is going to be. And that's something that we played around with a lot when Formula One decided to go to hybrid engines, because not only did they become 3 times the price, but they also became 10 times the complication. And we had at that point, if you remember, V8s that were just running forever. And it's a great shame, I think we lost that. And we're kind of back to parity now there, although the 3 times the cost element still remains. And I think, you know, that's what Formula One needs. I'm personally, you know, not a fan of massive unreliability on the cars. I think it's, you know, it's a bit boring when a race has got 5 finishes at the end and, you know, somebody who shouldn't be there is scoring points. But having said that, the unpredictability is important. And one thing I've said now for several years, and that is that I think the pit stops now are much too quick and much too slick. Yeah, we've enjoyed them. It's been a great part of Formula One's DNA. Has it brought in a lot more sponsorship and money into the sport? I don't know. But I think we should go back to F2 type pit stops where we have fewer personnel in the pit lane. And there's more chance, obviously, then, of a mistake being made. Now, it's pretty much cut and dry that it's going to be 3 to 4 seconds, even on a bad day. But if there's an unpredictability factor there, teams will think twice about maybe bringing a leading car in for a second stop, or maybe doing a stacked pit stop, and strategy would become more complicated. So I would love to see a limitation on the number of people on the pit stops in the future. I'd like to see the pit stops back to about 8 seconds. More television time for the sponsors on a static car as well. Anyway, I'm trying to be constructive here. G. Gaia. Thoroughly enjoy your videos. Big thank you. Would you please cover the penalty for the number of engines used in a single season? Personally feel that this could give an advantage to a few teams, and in this case, for the so-called rocket engines claimed by Toto Wolff. Well, it's a bit complicated, isn't it? It's basically 3 for the major components in the course of the year. And if you have to replace them, it's 5 and then 10 place grid penalty. And if it's over 15, you go to the back of the grid. It's all a bit complicated. I mean, the people say, why do you have these penalties? It's ridiculous. I mean, the reality is if you want to try to contain costs, and you want the engine manufacturers to build engines that will last for 1/3 of the year, in other words, to reduce costs that way, then you've got to have a penalty if they can't do that. So I don't know. I don't know what the answer is to that. I think the answer is forget about the whole thing, go back to V8s and V10s, but that's just me, as I said in the previous answer. We'd love to see, this is from Time Zone, these names, we'd love to see 26 cars on the grid. BMW, Audi, Porsche could join, and that would make 26 cars. Yeah, well, as I said, you know, the problem is, would the teams, the incumbent teams, be prepared to have smaller slices of the cake? I don't think Mercedes, Red Bull, Ferrari at the front would have a problem with that, but I think a lot of the midfield teams that have been fighting for so long to try to get more money, because with more money they'll be quicker. Yeah, right, as we've seen with Aston Martin. You know, it doesn't, those teams are going to be incredibly negative about having more cars on the grid. So that is the problem. It's not that the fans don't want it, it's that the teams in the middle of the grid don't want it.